Henry County police officers were called to this home in Stockbridge, Georgia, for what was believed to be a routine medical emergency. The caller said a pregnant woman had collapsed. As officers arrived, they found the garage door open and a woman lying on the ground. They approached to check her condition. Seconds later, without warning, gunfire came from inside the house. 2 officers were shot. What followed was a 17-hour armed standoff that was one of the most violent attacks on law enforcement in Henry County's history. On the morning of April 4th, 2019, a 911 call came into the Henry County Police Department. The caller reported a medical emergency at a home located on Eagle Way in the Eagle Ridge subdivision of Stockbridge, Georgia.
Henry County 911, okay. Can you please call? Please. Sandy. He's in the garage. Is he breathing, please? He's in the garage? I can see him, ma'am. His blood all over the driveway.
At that point, officers were dispatched for what they assumed was a routine welfare check, something they do all the time. As they approached the house, they saw a disturbing sight. Just inside the open garage door, lying face up on the floor, was a woman. She appeared completely unresponsive. That woman was 39-year-old Sandra Renee White. Now, Sandra wasn't a stranger to the officers. She was known in the community as a hard-working nurse and a mother. More importantly, she was 8 months pregnant. She was face up on the garage floor, and from a distance, she didn't appear to be breathing. There were no visible signs of trauma at first glance. The assumption was that she may have collapsed or suffered a medical episode. The officers moved in carefully but quickly, as they usually would in this kind of situation, to try and assess her and provide aid. That's when it happened.
Shots fired here, right here. Shots fired.
I'm clear. Shots fired.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
244, also been 50 now.
Without warning, gunfire erupted from inside the house. Shots were fired from somewhere deeper in the residence, targeting the officer standing in the open garage. Officer Taylor Webb was hit twice. He dropped to the ground. Officer Keegan Merritt was hit as well. A bullet struck him in the hand, injuring his fingers and wrist. For a few seconds, there was chaos. Both officers scrambled to get out of the line of fire. Officer Merritt, despite being wounded, managed to pull Webb away from the direct line of fire, back toward cover. They called for emergency backup over their radios. At that moment, it was clear. This wasn't a medical emergency. This was an ambush. Multiple units rushed to the scene within minutes. A SWAT team, crisis negotiators, drones, K-9 units, and tactical medics began surrounding the home. Nearby homes in the subdivision were evacuated or placed on lockdown. Streets were closed. Armored vehicles moved into position. The officers were transported to the hospital under escort. Officer Webb underwent surgery for his hip wound. Officer Merritt received treatment for his hand and would later require therapy to regain full use. While the officers were en route to the hospital, investigators began to piece together what was really going on inside the house. The shooter was identified quickly: Anthony Bailey Jr., 47 years old. Bailey was Sandra White's boyfriend, and he had a history of domestic violence. Just a year earlier, he had been arrested for battery and family violence. Sandra had filed at least one protective order against him in the past. She had also reportedly been trying to distance herself from him in the weeks leading up to April 4th, possibly fearing for her safety. But Bailey wasn't alone in the house. Police received confirmation that Sandra's 16-year-old son, Arkevion White, was also inside. At that point, the working assumption was that Sandra was either already dead or critically injured. What no one knew was that Bailey had been spiraling in the days leading up to April 4th. He had reportedly lost his job and was acting more unstable. Police would later find that he had armed himself with multiple firearms and had prepared for a confrontation. After firing at the officers, Bailey barricaded himself inside the home. He locked the doors, closed the curtains, and turned the interior into a fortress. He had positioned furniture to block entry points and was heavily armed. Officers couldn't see him, and they couldn't see Arkivian either. Using a bullhorn and phone calls, negotiators repeatedly tried to reach Bailey. Sometimes he responded, but his messages were disturbing and erratic.
Don't come in here. Don't come in here. Don't come in here. Do not come in here. I got a lot of shots.
Yes, sir.
I got a lot of shots. 30 shots. I got a hostage. I got a hostage. Don't come in here. I got a lot of shots. I got a lot of shots. I got 30 round clips in here.
Hey, man, come on out here.
I ain't coming nowhere.
Where's the officer at?
He downstairs somewhere.
Where's he at?
I don't know. I hear that he moved.
Huh?
I guess I shot him and he moved. I got a lot of shots.
He made vague threats, shouted incoherently, and refused to provide any sign that Arkivian was still alive. Every time officers tried to get closer to the home, or when they deployed tear gas or flashbangs, Bailey responded by firing more rounds from inside the house. He shot through windows. He targeted drones and police equipment. 2 drones were shot out of the air. The entire neighborhood remained on lockdown as the standoff dragged on. SWAT officers remained positioned with rifles trained on every window and door. Tactical commanders knew that any move forward risked the hostage's life, if he was even still alive. No one knew when Sandra had died, and worse, no one knew if Arkivian was still breathing. As police secured the perimeter of 3678 Eagle Way, what had started as a welfare check had now become one of the most dangerous situations Henry County had ever faced. A fully armed suspect barricaded inside a house, 2 officers shot, 1 woman presumed dead, and a 16-year-old possibly being held hostage. The Henry County Police Department activated its Special Response Team, SRT, their equivalent of SWAT, and called in help from surrounding agencies, including the Georgia State Patrol, Henry County Sheriff's Office, and FBI negotiators. By 3 a.m. on April 5th, after nearly 17 hours, tactical leaders gave the green light. They would breach the house. They had waited as long as possible. All other options had failed. They believed Bailey may have already killed himself, but they couldn't be sure until they got inside. They first confirmed what they had suspected. Sandra White was deceased in the garage, killed long before the standoff began. She had been shot in the head and chest, execution style. Inside the home, on the 2nd floor, officers found 2 more bodies in an upstairs bedroom. One was Anthony Bailey Jr., dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Near his body were multiple firearms, including a semi-automatic rifle and a handgun. Next to Bailey was the body of Arkivian White, just 16 years old. He had been shot and killed, likely within hours of the officer's arrival, maybe even before the standoff began. Investigators believed that Bailey had killed Sandra and Arkivian in a double murder-suicide.
She actually sent me a picture of the dress that she was gonna wear to the baby shower that we'll never get to have.
The news hit the community hard. Sandra White, a nurse, mother, and soon-to-be mother again, was mourned by family, friends, and co-workers. She had dedicated her life to helping others, and in the end, she was taken in a moment of cruelty by someone she once trusted.
He went to Dutchtown High School. He played football. He had a great future ahead of him.
Arkivian was remembered as a kind, athletic teenager who loved football and had a future ahead of him. His school, Woodland High, held a memorial. Classmates and teachers wore blue ribbons and jerseys in his honor.